Welcome. In a legal and financial world that's constantly shifting, just staying informed isn't enough anymore. It's about survival. This week, we're not just going to recap the news. Oh, no. We are building a strategic blueprint for elite performance, covering everything from your financial structure to how you think and even who you know. First up, we're going to fortify your intellectual framework. We're tackling the completely new way of thinking you're going to need for the 2026 NextGen Bar Exam, which is a total game changer for how legal minds are going to be tested from now on. Then, we're going to secure the perimeter. We're diving headfirst into a huge challenge in today's courtrooms. How do you prove what's real when AI and deepfakes are becoming so good they're, frankly, scary? And finally, we are going to expand your reach. We'll show you the actual architecture for connecting with top-tier clients and really earning a seat at the table in some of the world's most exclusive circles. So here's our blueprint for today. We're going to start by laying the financial foundation. Then we'll get into the legal mindset, this crisis of authenticity, and the architecture of access, before we put it all together into your very own sovereign blueprint. Okay, let's get into it. The absolute foundation of your entire operation is your firm's legal entity. Now, I know it might seem like a simple formality, but if you get this wrong, it can quietly cost you tens of thousands of dollars every single year. And here's where so many successful practitioners make a critical mistake. The default path, right, is a standard LLP or LLC. The problem? This structure can create a massive financial leak. The strategic move is the S-Corp election, which, as you'll see, fundamentally changes how your income is taxed. And this is the culprit right here, self-employment tax. In a standard LLP, this tax hits your entire net income. You should think of it as a constant, heavy drain on your capital before you even get a chance to put that money to work. So here's how the S-Corp solution actually works. Once your firm's net profit is consistently hitting around $80,000, this becomes a complete no-brainer. You split your income into two streams. First, you take a reasonable salary, which gets taxed like normal. But everything else, that becomes a shareholder distribution. And the crucial part is, it is not subject to that incredibly costly self-employment tax. So let's look at the real impact here. Let's say you have a $300,000 profit. If you take a $140,000 salary, you could save $15,000, maybe even $20,000 in taxes on the rest. We're talking every single year. Now, what's really interesting here is the story this visual tells. On the left, you see the tax burden under that standard LLP. And on the right, the S-Corp. Look at that difference. It's not a small tweak. It's a huge drop in your annual tax bill. That's the power of smart structuring right there. And this is the key takeaway for this whole section. Your entity structure isn't just some paperwork you file with the state. When you use it correctly, it becomes one of the most powerful financial weapons in your entire arsenal. Okay, let's shift gears from your financial framework to your intellectual one. The new NextGen Bar Exam, well, it's a total redesign. It's no longer about what you can memorize, it's all about how you think. It demands a much more flexible and analytical mindset. Take a concept like modified comparative negligence. The old exam, it might have just asked for the definition. The 2026 exam, it's going to give you a complex, multi-party scenario and expect you to argue the tiny nuances of that 1% difference between 50% and 51% fault, a difference that determines whether your client gets a recovery or walks away with absolutely nothing. And this is exactly the type of question you'll face. It tests your ability to apply old rules to brand new situations. There's no simple textbook answer for this, right? A sophisticated analysis means you have to weigh the manufacturer's potential design flaws against the coder's software bugs, against the operator's adherence to protocol. It's a multi-layered problem, not a single right answer. Which brings us to the security systems of our blueprint. The very nature of evidence is under attack, creating a crisis of authenticity that every modern practitioner has to be prepared to face. This statement has never been more true. The rise of these hyper-realistic deepfakes has created what experts are calling the liar's dividend. It's this phenomenon where even real, authentic evidence can be successfully dismissed as fake just because our trust in digital media has been so deeply eroded. So, how do you fight back? Well, your toolkit has to evolve. We're now using tools like neural forensics, which uses AI to spot the tiny, invisible glitches in pixels or shadows that give away a fake. Get this, we even have technology like remote photoplethysmography that can detect a person's heart rate from a video, just by tracking microscopic color changes in their skin. Proactively, you can use blockchain timestamping to create a permanent, unchangeable record proving your evidence existed at a specific time, making it incredibly difficult for anyone to challenge. Now for the final component of our structure, building the architecture of access. Look, if you want to attract those seven-figure clients, you cannot operate where everyone else does. You have to engineer your access to the rooms where they are. It all starts with a critical mindset shift. The vendor sells a service. They say, I'm a lawyer. The peer provides a transformation. They say, I protect the generational legacies of families who are navigating the intersection of technology and global law. You see the difference? Ultra-high net worth clients hire peers, not vendors. And you achieve this status through organic referrals. You are not going to find these clients at typical networking events. You find them in what we call third spaces, private clubs, philanthropic boards, niche investment groups. You provide value first, solve a problem before you're ever even asked, demonstrate absolute discretion, and that is how you earn a referral as a trusted peer, not just another vendor. So as we wrap up here, you can start to see how it all connects, right? This isn't just a list of separate topics. It's one integrated strategy. You build a rock-solid financial foundation, so you're not leaking cash. You develop a next-gen legal mindset to outthink the future. You master the tools to navigate the crisis of authenticity to protect your cases. And you engineer the architecture of access to operate at the highest levels. It's all about strategy over brute force. So here is your homework. First, review your firm's entity structure immediately. Second, if you're a student, run a complex comparative negligence simulation. And third, if you're a practitioner, start investigating digital timestamping solutions for your critical case files. And I'll leave you with this one final thought, bringing us all the way back to where we started. Look at your financial foundation, look at your overall strategy, and ask yourself this critical question. The plan is in your hands. Now it's time to build.
All right, this week we're cutting right to the chase. We're going to distill the absolute essence of what it takes to be an elite legal professional for the next decade. Let's dive into the synthesis of the 3 core pillars that are going to define your success. So, let's kick things off with our first pillar, the massive shift in the legal landscape itself, starting with the 2026 NextGen Bar Exam. Look, this is not about memorizing a bunch of old rules anymore. It's about mastering a whole new mindset for high-stakes, real-world application.
Okay, the first critical battleground you've got to master is comparative negligence. Now, on the surface, it sounds simple, right? A client's recovery gets knocked down by how much they were at fault. But trust me, the way this rule is applied today, that's where entire cases are won and lost.
And check this out. This visual says it all. This is the 50% bar. At 50% fault, your client gets half. But you just tip those scales to 51% and they get nothing. I mean, absolutely zero. That single percentage point, it's not just a number. It is literally everything.
And that's the whole point. Your ability to argue the tiny nuances of that 1% difference is the new gold standard. This is a strategic battlefield, you know? It's not some simple calculation on a multiple choice test. This is exactly what the NextGen exam is designed to find out if you can handle.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's throw this new strategic mindset at another modern challenge, applying old-school doctrine to new-age problems. Strict liability isn't about a faulty toaster anymore. Today, elite counsel has to answer questions just like this one.
I mean, just look at the web of complexity here. Who's on the hook? Is it the manufacturer? The programmer who wrote the flight path algorithm? Maybe it's the operator who is monitoring it from miles away. Or think about a medical context. What about the AI tool that a surgeon relies on? The 2026 bar is going to demand that you navigate this maze with absolute precision.
And that's a perfect lead-in to our second pillar, because the battlefield has officially gone digital. We're not just fighting cases anymore. We're fighting for the very concept of truth in an age of deepfakes and AI-generated everything.
This quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It's what's known as the liar's dividend. It's a phenomenon where even real, authentic video evidence can be dismissed as a fake just because the possibility of a fake exists. Your job now is to prove reality itself.
So the big question is, how in the world do you do that? Well, the old methods are basically obsolete. Just checking the metadata on a file, that's not going to cut it anymore. The new frontier is something called neural forensics, which is a completely different way of looking at digital content.
So, welcome to the new toolkit. We're talking about looking for microscopic glitches in pixels, analyzing shadows that literally defy the laws of physics, and even detecting the tiny changes in a person's skin tone that can reveal their actual heart rate in a video, which is a dead giveaway for a synthetic overlay.
But here's the thing, playing defense isn't enough. The real power move is to get proactive. The ultimate defense against someone yelling, "It's a deepfake," is to anchor your evidence to the blockchain the very moment it's created. That creates an unbreakable, decentralized chain of custody.
And what you get is this, an immutable record. Once that evidence is on the ledger, it cannot be altered. It's the digital equivalent of carving something into stone. It provides undeniable proof of when and what that evidence was, period. All right, let's shift gears. Time for our third and final pillar. We're moving from the technical skills to the high art of human connection at the absolute highest level. This is all about building what we call the architecture of influence.
So here's the first rule, and it's a big one. Seven-figure clients are basically invisible by design. You're not going to find them at some corporate mixer wearing name tags. You find them in what are called third spaces. These are exclusive environments built on privacy, trust, and shared passions.
And this is your roadmap. We're talking about private clubs, the boards of major charities and foundations, really niche communities like vintage car racing, and those closed-door investment groups. This is where real relationships are built, organically.
And once you're in those spaces, your introduction can't be, "Hi, I'm a lawyer." No way. This is the sovereign elevator pitch. It's not about what your title is, it's about the transformation you provide. It instantly positions you as a peer, not just some vendor looking to make a sale.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together. Whether we're dissecting a negligence case, authenticating digital evidence, or building an elite network, there is a single philosophy that unites them all, and that is strategy over effort. So there you have it, the three pillars of sovereignty we've covered: mastering the new legal framework, winning on the algorithmic battlefield, and designing your architecture of influence. The key is, these aren't separate skills, they're all part of one integrated system.
Because at the end of the day, the core thesis of the Sovereign Council boils down to this. Stop focusing so much on effort and start focusing on strategy. It's about elevating your thinking, your skills, and your environment so you can operate at a completely different level. It's not about working harder, it's about working higher.
So, as we wrap this up, I'll just leave you with this one question. The landscape is changing at lightning speed, from the bar exam to the courtroom to the boardroom. Are you really prepared for what's coming next?
And that's our synthesis. Take these lessons, apply the strategy, and start working higher. Stay sharp, stay sovereign.